On September 13, 2020, we are encouraging all members and frequent visitors to collectively tithe that day and others to commit to start tithing. Let's begin tithing together and watch God take care of the rest.
Absolutely. It has now been, 7 months?
7 months.
Since not only did you switch churches, you left the denomination. You went from the Methodist.
Yes.
You switched states.
Yes.
You go to Atlanta. It's Baptist.
It is the most glorified witness protection you have ever seen. I've gone underground, above ground at the same time, and it's been a heck of a ride.
Any AME people still mad at you?
A whole lot of them.
But here's the thing, though. Here's what I found to be interesting. And I've always said this, because when people say, how did you go from the Catholic Church, and then you left to join a Baptist church, and then you went to this non-denominational, and I said, well, first of all, I said, when I read scripture, I said, disciples went from town to town to town.
That's right.
I said, and also, we are at different stations in our lives.
Right.
And so there are some churches that I went to at the right time.
Right.
But then when I grew out of that, I could not stay there for that level of teaching because I'd already gone here. Right. So it's like going from high school to get your undergrad, to get your master's and your PhD.
Absolutely.
I think many of us, we are locked in to say, oh, I can't leave, when, no, if you're listening, God is like, no, I need you to go.
Wow. And that's where it is I was really wrestling when this opportunity came. I'm a third generation AME. My father was presiding bishop at the AME church. My grandfather was a bishop in the AME church. And my greatest weight was, what was Dad gonna say? So I went to my father and said, man, this opportunity is here. What do you think about it? He said, God didn't call you to a denomination, he called you to a people. So if that's where God is calling you, I'm with you.
But I think people have the same problem.
Yeah.
Because what happens is, and I've had to counsel people on this. They literally said, Roland, how did you leave this church? I said, I grew.
Right.
I said, I don't believe that we are designed to be at one place for our entire lives. I believe, Maya Angelou, I think she was on Oprah when she said, I'm not a Christian. Because if I am a Christian, that means I've done everything I'm supposed to do. She said, I'm trying to get to get to that point.
Wow.
And I think in the learning process, and I went through this, again, you talk about the same thing. The Catholic Church I was born and raised in, the meeting to found it was in my grandparents' living room.
Wow.
So when I left the Catholic Church, my entire family was Catholic. The meeting was in the living room. My grandmother and grandfather joined with other families and walked door to door in our community, because then what happened was you had to actually have 50 families, not members, families agreed to open a Catholic church.
I don't know.
So that was the hardest decision, to leave what was my entire life for 25 years.
Amazing.
But it's growth.
Yeah.
And I think, just like a member, preachers have to have growth as well, and get out of, no, if I am here to serve people, it doesn't matter where I'm going to serve people.
You don't even know how liberating that is. I'm amazed these last 6 months how many preachers have come to me and say, you freed me, because I was beginning to feel like ministry was a sentence. Because we have this thought in our mind, once you go to this church, you got to stay there till they put you in a wicker chair and a corsage for your anniversary and can't move anymore. And what it is that you're saying is correct. Jesus gave the disciples the direction, go. It was never stay. And we've got to get to a place of transition.
Now, when you also talk about making that shift, you also walked into a dire situation.
Yes.
Bishop Eddie L. Long went through trials and tribulations.
Yes.
This massive ministry on television, international, numbers just whittled down to a very small number. And so this wasn't just you moving. You went from being the founder of a church to walking into a fiery pit, if you will.
Yes.
And then people challenging you on your own trials and tribulations.
Right.
And so you're walking in with a whole lot of stuff on your back,
Right.
and then people saying you got to save all of this.
Yeah, it was the greatest challenge of my life. Jill Nelson wrote a book years ago called Volunteer Slavery. So I wasn't tricked into it. I knew
Right.
exactly what it was, but here's what's amazing. The church is the largest land-owning black church in America, 280 acres. Sanctuary, almost 10,000 people. Bishop Long, at his height, was doing 3 services a weekend, 2 on Sunday, 1 on Saturday. And it went down to 1,500 people. 1 service, the other 2 canceled. But that core group was so strong, Roland, many people thought it would foreclose, they would lose the building. That 1,500 people never missed a mortgage payment. 1,500 people kept the lights on. So the remnant that remained was so committed to the vision, they said, we're here. We're too vested in it to let it slip away. And so I'm still in awe as how it is that they were able to save it. Last year, 2,378 churches foreclosed with a pastor. And yet this church was able to maintain without one. Is just the grace of God.
Well, which also says that the church is about the body,
Yes.
not the one individual
Yes.
leading.
Yes.
And I think that's also what a lot of people lose sight of.
Yeah, they are spiritually mature at a place I couldn't imagine. One of the things we were talking about before recording is the shift that I've had to make psychologically from a founder to a successor. And what I discovered in Baltimore, 76% of my members, I was their first pastor. At this church, they had a different level of spiritual maturity, of understanding the Word of God, the gifts of the Spirit, the fruit of the Spirit. So it was not introduction. They were like, come on with it. If that's where you are, let's roll. And so I had to recalibrate what my thinking is. In these 6 months, everything I've asked them to do, it has been at my own peril that I underestimated the strength of them while fractured. I said one Sunday morning, we're gonna raise $5,000 for Bennett College. That 5,000 grew into 22,000. We got behind that whole movement. It ended up mushrooming outside of our church, of course, to 9 million.
Yep.
I said, we're gonna raise $50,000 to bail young men out of jail over Easter weekend. That 50,000 went to 110,000. I said, we're gonna do 20,000 food package for Kenya 4th of July weekend.
Y'all put together 50.
We could pull together 50,000.
So what they saying is, you think small.
There it is. I look like a grasshopper in my own eyes. And so I've had to recalibrate what this new reality looks like.
Well, so let me go back to the point about spiritual maturity.
Yes.
I remember having a conversation with Pastor Ralph West, and we were discussing a church I was looking at. And when I told him that this preacher was a very strong preacher, but he didn't do his Bible study, West said, oh, that's the worst thing in the world. He said, the preacher that outsources his Bible study will not have a spiritually mature congregation.
Wow.
He said, because
Wow.
He said the spiritual maturity of the congregation means that you have taught them giving, which is what you're just talking about.
Right.
He said, so I don't have to stand there and beg and spend 15 minutes on offering. He
Wow.
said, because they're spiritually mature. When I go to First Baptist Glen Arden, literally their offering part is sort of like, all right, it's time to offer. Boom.
You're right.
There's not a lot of time spent on that,
Right.
because the teaching and the training has resulted in a people who say, no, we know what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And you, as versus, you're up there killing yourself,
Yes.
trying to sweat, hoop, sing, dance, and hop to get them excited.
Right.
That also, I think that's also important, because the congregation is telling you, we need you, your preaching now has to go to another level, because we've been taught, we operating at PhD level.
Absolutely. It has stretched me at a capacity where, like, oh no, you ain't singing no jingle. I need you to give us the full verse. Now, it ain't no phrases. Come on with it.
Right.
You went to Duke for a reason. We need to know what it is.
My wife, of course, Reverend Dr. Jackie Hill Martin, it is so funny because we'll be sitting there, and she knows I take copious notes. And we'll be in church, she'll look over, she's like, you ain't feeling this sermon, huh? Because it'll have the date, it'll have the church, it'll have the preacher, it'll have the scripture, it'll have the title of the sermon. And if it's 2 lines below that, you ain't said nothing.
Wow.
No, literally.
Wow.
If I got 2 lines, you ain't, this is me.
Right. Like, all right, there.
What time this gonna be over?
Right, right, right. The other thing that was a shift for me, you've been now to both churches that I've pastored, is that this is a older congregation. So my church in Baltimore was for 18 to 45-year-olds, millennials, Gen Xers, and I'm pastoring baby boomers. I called my dad the other week. I said, this is the first time in my ministry I said to one of my members, yes, ma'am. It's the first time I've had to say yes, sir, to somebody I'm supposed to be over. And so just what that shift is and what that represents is it ain't, you know, the back of Jet magazine just preaching the titles of the top 20 songs.
Right.
You got to go into a whole nother level. Then you dealing with Atlanta's the bastion of HBCUs, and they coming from Fisk and Tuskegee and TSU and Spelman. Like, all right now, come on, give us a little something beyond 2 Chainz.
You're going to use all of that Duke, Morehouse, and all the extra reading.
That's right.
It's like, no, you can't just come with it. Right, you sitting there trying to mention 2 Chainz. They like, when he gonna get the Charles Spurgeon?
There it is.
When he gonna get the Dietrich Bonhoeffer?
There it is. Yes, I'm like, okay, say it for the people in the back. Yeah, so it's really been amazing because since I've been there, there's a whole flush of young people and young adults who hadn't been there. My new members director said, Pastor, you're going to have to do a reorientation because we don't know how to process these people. You know, we have processed people with church experience.
There you go.
We don't know how to process those who smell like weed.
But which to me is which is the problem, because how you think you're gonna grow, and that's who you're supposed to be reaching, the unchurched.
Yes, if it's gonna be a church and not a country club, is you got to look for people who don't look like you, and that's what we're really doing, because Atlanta has moved in such a way that the crux of the church no longer lived in Lithonia. Mm-hmm. They were coming in from Vinings and Sandy Springs and Buckhead, but now we're really evangelizing that community, and it's making a world of difference.
Now let's talk about that, because we talk about evangelizing. I have challenged, and I love when I do this too, because all these preachers look at me and they're like, hold up, you ain't no preacher. I'm like,
he is.
I said, no,
this is a runaway preacher. I'm telling you all.
No.
Meet Deacon Roland Martin.
No. This is what I tell them. Because I've had more people come up to me, they're like, oh, I had this brother's like, you got the mark, you need to be preaching. I said, no. I said, let me explain to you what God told me. I said, God told me I got enough preachers. My grandfather was not a preacher. My grandfather, first of all, had all the spiritual gifts. He had healing, he had the prophetic, he had all of that.
Yeah.
So I experienced that. He passed away, I think, when I was 15, so I experienced all of that. Knew the word Catholic, knew the word backwards and forwards. This is what I told him. I said, God specifically told me. He said, no, I got enough preachers. He said, Roland, in 5 minutes of radio, you talk to more people than most preachers will preach to in their lifetime.
Period.
He said, so I need you where you are.
You in the 1%.
So when I'm on television, when I'm on radio, when I'm on social media, and I'm talking about issues of faith, and I'm speaking to those, I'm bringing all of that, I am reaching folks that a pastor would be jealous of, and trying to get them to understand, because, and I didn't realize this, somebody reminded me, somebody said, Roland, you the one who turned Jamal on the Periscope. It was something like that, somebody told me. And let me, just so y'all understand how I roll with technology. So he gets to Atlanta.
That's right.
Let y'all know, he gets to Atlanta. And I'm sitting here, I'm online, And I'm like, I'm looking at the New Birth Periscope feed. No, not even the Periscope feed. I'm looking at their Facebook page.
Right.
And I hop over to the YouTube channel. Nothing's on there. Nothing's on their Periscope feed. Nothing's on his feed. I said, yo, you know you got more people who follow you on Periscope, Facebook, and YouTube than the church does. I said, you need to go get this program, which will send y'all stream to all 6 platforms. So now it's not just New Birth, it's also going to yours as well. Now, y'all, he in the pulpit.
Yes.
Because I'm watching.
Right.
I said, these numbers are too low.
He did. So for New Birth, we owe this man. He has turned around our media department. And before he is wise enough to ask for, we owe him a check. But I'm just gonna say thank you.
They had some graphics. I was like, these some tired graphics. You need to go to this company. Because again, for me, I understand technology.
Yeah, you do. And technology is so critical and valuable, and a lot of ministers, because they are not using technology. The reality is, if you are not technologically savvy, your church is going to be extinct in the next 5 years. It's the reality.
When I was there that Sunday, when I visited, I was in town June 23rd or so. You like, look, y'all watching? Cash App? You like, I'm sorry, these are what people are using out there.
A third of our giving is now online giving. A third of it. So I told them, listen, you know, if there's a ½ inch of snow, Atlanta shut down.
Right.
Said, don't worry about it. If y'all will drop at my house a Roland Martin package, if I can turn all of this on, it don't matter what it is. We can just keep the ball rolling.
And that's the thing, man. Because see, the reason this is so personal to me, because what the black church is dealing with, for me, is what black media is dealing with.
Wow. Black
media is literally doing it. Black media is dying like the black church is, because they refuse to embrace technology. The Chicago Defender this week printed their last printed edition. People have been calling me and BBC called me to get my comment on it, and they were like, it's so sad. I said, no, it should have happened 5 years ago. They were like, wow. What? I said, I'm sorry, y'all. I said, I took over the Chicago Defender in 2004. Had not been a prophet in 20 years. I said, I launched the first black news source audio podcast in 2005.
Wow.
First black video podcast in 2006.
Wow.
The owners were thinking like a lot of board of trustees of churches. They said, we just want to remain a small community paper. I said, I got to go. Because I understood this historic paper could actually be a national and international brand. And to build it, I said, no, I can't do small like y'all. I left. And that was the same thing. And so they literally are doing things today that I had implemented 15 years ago. So imagine where they would be in 2019 had they listened in 2004, 5, and 6. To me, I just think the black church is the same way.
That's where the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper is going in the same way. They have 1 million followers now on Facebook, but nowhere near that in circulation. But they're expending all of their energy trying to handle the circulation part when the whole trend is shifted in another direction.
Right. And I think when we talk about, I'm gonna go back to spiritual maturity, when we talk about also how do you outreach, like I said, I've ticked some pastors off when I said, when the last time y'all created a 1 mile radius around your church and then had tell your members we going door to door? They looked at me like I was crazy. I said, I'm sorry. Last I checked, that's also biblical. I said, it's called a census.
Right.
I said, because we were talking about education, and I was talking about freedom schools, and I was saying that you have retired teachers in your congregation. I said, so imagine if you said, we're going to go to the mile radius around our churches, and then we're going to knock on the door and say, is there a child here 18 or younger? What's their grade level? I said, and then we're offering free tutoring sessions. I said, first of all, y'all could change reading scores and math scores overnight.
Literally.
I said, second is, you're going to encounter people who likely have never even seen you and your members. I said, so the offshoot could be mama or daddy could all of a sudden decide, well, I'm going to drop by that church on Sunday because they care enough about my child and education, offer free tutoring.
Right.
They looked at me like I was out of my mind. I said, I'm sorry. I said, what? Did y'all miss the part about discipleship?
Let me echo your point for the cynics that don't understand it. Within my first month, that was the very first project we did. We collected canned food items in our church and went door to door. And what's critical, I'm saying this to the pastors because Roland's been given this challenge. I didn't send the members, I went with them. I went with them and knocked on the door. Said, hey, this is our new pastor. Like, you the pastor of New Birth? Knocking on the door? Look, bro, I got 10,000 seats I got to fill. I got one with your name on it. And people began coming to the church simply because they couldn't believe that I would come to their door.
Right.
That you got to be high tech and high touch. And if the ministry is not doing both of that, we're going to miss out.
Right. Which is, look, it's like we might be at Essence, we might be somewhere, and folks going, you walk around without security? I'm like, yeah. Because, and that's why, and so even though I'm sitting up front, I purposely always go to the back and walk around.
You do.
And folks like, why are you doing it? I said, because I'm not afraid of the people, because they also watch.
That's right. And I'm a co-sign it. He's not saying this for public consumption. 2 times at Essence, I've been around this man. It's almost like he's running for president and running to be mayor of Essence Festival. I've seen him do it at the Image Awards. Anything that's black, Roland Martin is a dependable voice.
But you gotta touch people.
Yeah. And you got an hour where you got preachers who are not connected to the people because you got all these armor bearers and security that you don't even know your own
Dog,
members.
I can't, this is when I say this is 100% true story, okay? I'm at a church in Arlington, Texas. Now, mind you, I'm coming from the Church Without Walls.
Right.
My wife is the former Minister of Education. She was like member 700.
Right.
And was left when they had 20,000 members, and she trained them all.
Got it.
We go to this church. They one of the fastest growing churches in America, all this sort of stuff. And I'm sitting there, I'm kind of like, all right, nice size room. I ain't say sanctuary.
I got it.
Nice size room. And so we then say, hey, all right, we want to meet with the pastor. They said, we're going to schedule a meeting with the elders. I said, I'm sorry. I can call my pastor at home or on a cell phone. I said, no disrespect. I'm not meeting with the elders. I'm joining because I want to meet with him and her. So one time we were leaving and they were in a room. So I stepped into the room and literally, if you're her, she had an armor bearer who was like doing this here.
No way.
And I'm like, why don't she move? Like, why is she? And I'm sitting there like, finally, I'm kind of like, and my wife was watching it like, they lost their mind. And literally, she is standing in between us. And I'm like, does she think I'm going to attack this woman? Suffice to say, we ain't joining that church.
Clearly.
And of course, it was all God too, because see, that pastor then went to prison because he was a assaulted women there. But it would, but by discernment also picked. It was all this, and this is what I said. I said they were trying to be mega. They were trying to create this facade,
right? As
opposed to just focus on the word and the members.
Yes.
And so they created all this distance, and I just sat there and said, I will never. Like for instance, I cannot join a church if there's no opportunity to even shake the pastor's hand.
Wow.
Because now, granted, you got multiple services. I get folks busy, but to me, if you go back into your cubby hole and you never ever even speak to your people, I use the example all the time. The woman with the blood problem would have never been able to get healed if she couldn't touch Jesus' hem.
Right.
If he was untouchable.
Right, and that sets a performance culture. That you coming out on the stage, right, to do your thing, and then you going back in the green room.
No,
that you're not doing ministry.
Like singers and comedians, everybody else.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's one of the things that I do every Sunday. I'm tired and drained, but my logic was I had 3 services in Baltimore. I only have 1 at New Birth.
Right.
So I can't shake the. I don't have no evening service. So it's going to take me an hour to do it. I'm going to sit out there.
Create the time.
Yes.
And also, that's relationship.
That's right.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Last thing, last question. How do you deal with people who want to continue, and this is going to help somebody who's dealing, how do you deal with people who want to continue to imprison you from your past mistakes
Yeah.
and totally ignore who you are today?
Amazing revelation God gave me several years ago because I was wrestling with it. I'll tell you this. I'm in the process.
Because you know the interview that we did for the Amazing Grace special,
Yes.
People are still, I get the emails, they still see it online.
Oh, yeah.
And I see all the comments.
Oh, yeah. Roland, going to New Birth, moving from Baltimore to Atlanta, much bigger media market, as you very well know. I was doing everything to get the stuff from my past scrubbed off the internet. Said, man, I survived the Baltimore Sun. I can't deal with this in the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. I tried 2 different firms. Both firms, as soon as I initiated contract, the firms collapsed. I'm like,
Wow.
Lord, what? Really? I was like, Lord, you got to do something. And the Lord said to me, man, I elevated Joseph to be Secretary of Agriculture, and he never got his name exonerated from Potiphar's wife. Nowhere did he ever get his name cleared, but still got elevated. And God says, I need to see, will you trust me to bless you with a bad name? And that's really been the thing that has sustained me, is that the grace of God doesn't erase your mistakes. It blesses you in spite of your mistakes. And so I've been able to stand and navigate, not as if it didn't happen, but I am where it is that I am, quite frankly, because of what happened. And transparently, had I not gone through the moral failures and the ethical crisis, I wouldn't have been prepared for where I am. So because of what I went through, Morehouse didn't get me ready for this. Didn't get me ready for this. But going through my own cycles of life helped me to prepare for where it is that I am now.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Always
Love you.
man.
You look good, sir.
Even if you're a captain.
Even though. Thank you.
This is a public service announcement. We are calling all retirees, seniors, single parents, entrepreneurs, students ages 17 to 25, educators, furloughed workers, married couples, first responders, creatives, those in technology, and committed visitors. Join Dr. Jamal Bryant for a very special Zoom and prayer call. You don't want to miss this brief moment of instruction and impartation from Pastor Bryant. Make sure you sign up by texting NB Top 10 to 71441 and complete the ministry form.